Welcome back, Wisdom Seekers, to another episode of the Gathering Wisdom podcast. If you hear a little background noise, that's just because I couldn't resist the call to come sit outside and record in my garden. It's a little breezy, the sun is out, and my chickens are busy clucking away doing their thing. And I've got my little dog Astro sitting next to me as we just enjoy some sunshine and vitamin D. Looking forward to the close of winter and the oncoming of spring. It's very evident, and it's not often that I get to just kind of sit and enjoy the peace while baby naps. Today, I wanted to bring you a short story that lives rent free in my brain. I've said before, and I'll say it again, that my superpower, and I feel like my one gift in this life, is to be adaptable. I've been blessed with just innate tools in learning how to pivot challenges, not always with ease, but with grace and with gratitude, recognizing that challenges are what builds resiliency and character and what helps me weave interesting designs in the tapestry of my life. And this story is an ancient parable that really sums up that idea of allowing you to be a part of life, recognizing that life is happening for you and not to you, and that you are a part of your story, and how you perceive events is how you can move forward with ease and grace. This story was inspired by the positive intelligence conversation we had a few weeks ago, where we discussed how to channel that inner sage. And it really all comes down to recognizing when something startling or shocking or challenging comes across your path. How do you handle it? And what thoughts come up, and what inner voice is being used to judge those thoughts. This is the story of the Chinese farmer and his horse. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate with him. They said, "We're so sorry to hear that your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer just replied gently, "Maybe." The next day, that horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everyone came back and said, "Wow, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events and fortune for your family. You now have 8 horses." And the farmer then again replied gently, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of those horses, and while riding, he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." And the farmer then replied, "Maybe." The following day, the conscription officers came around with the military to conscript those young men into joining the army, and they rejected his son because he had broken his leg. And again, all the neighbors came around and said, "What wonderful news! Isn't that great?" And again, the farmer replied, "Maybe." We have no idea how things are going to unfold. And this story popped up again and again for me when I was watching LA burn with the recent tragedies and the fires. It's devastating, and it's not something we would want to wish on any community, any family, any person. However, you never know how things are going to shake out. In a city where you often feel very alone and disconnected from people, you're just a car. People are often rude, kind of stuck in their own zone. Look at how the community and how people banded together. And now the motto is that LA will build back stronger, LA strong. That would have never happened. These connections between these communities, these bonds that were now even solidified even stronger, could not have occurred if there wasn't a significant challenge in the way. The other thing I can't help but think of is when the opportunity does arise to rebuild, the thoughtfulness and consideration that will go into the redesign in these communities and these fire-prone areas so that they can rebuild and rebuild with resiliency. And I think that really sums up the attitude we need to have moving forward in our lives. I think the 3 key takeaways from this little parable are: good and bad are constructs. They're judgments that we form, and what could be good for one person could be really bad for another. And it's really all about how it's perceived. It's all about recognizing that our judgments are temporary and incomplete because we don't have the ability to see the whole picture yet. We have to understand that the labels good and bad are man-made designs, and we can't get too caught up in those labels. Essentially, I tell myself there is no good, there is no bad. Things just happen. The second takeaway for you is that in a world that's constantly changing, You have to cultivate inner resiliency because everything could get taken away from you tomorrow, just like the victims of the fires. How are you going to deal, rise above, and still continue to be active and like the main character of your life? You cannot be a victim to circumstance. Life is not fair. The cards will not always be dealt in your favor. I look back at all these rags to riches stories. The recent performance at the Super Bowl by Kendrick Lamar comes to mind. You cannot be a victim of your circumstance. You were born into a family without means. So what? There's been many, many examples of people who've risen above their circumstance to become something great or live a comfortable life. I truly just believe it has to do with the tools that you're either given or that you learn along the way. One of my guilty pleasures is listening to near-death experiences, and many of them have the same theme where they had an opportunity to meet God, source, the universe, the one universal field, and be embedded with this information that we are already living in heaven. We can touch heaven, it surrounds us. It's all about our perception and how we choose to enjoy our life experience. We're here to learn the hard lessons. One universal truth is that nothing is permanent, nothing stays the same. That is a universal law. And more importantly, any struggle that comes across our path is just an opportunity to build resiliency, and any blessing that comes across our path is an opportunity to give gratitude. When you're faced with something challenging, it's up to you to decide how you react to it. And that's ultimately how you cultivate your experience here on earth. The third takeaway is that in order to navigate uncertainty and build this resiliency, you have to invest in your mindfulness. You need to figure out a form of meditation that works for you, establish a gratitude practice. I'll give you a quick cheat code. I learned this in college. I was really struggling my freshman year when I got started on my college journey, and I realized I found myself really missing home. A friend from high school before he graduated gave me a mixed CD, and the very first song on there was a Bruce Springsteen song, Thunder Road. I think from that point on, I finally understood why my mom was such a Bruce fan, and it's because of the stories he tells. And I remember sitting in my dorm with my little light, feeling a little lost, trying to find my footing and understanding the words to the song and realizing that I was given an opportunity to get an education and that my life was no way going to be as sad as half of the songs that he writes about, because he writes about real, raw, down in the dumps, blue collar, working man songs. And I thought, well, that will never be me. Oprah also shares publicly that she has a huge painting right in her foyer when she walks into her house. It's a picture of a slave mother and daughter. And she owns an original auction book with a bunch of names of slaves. On bad days, she opens that book and she reads those names out loud, along with their ages and the price that they were sold for. And she thinks to herself, well, there is no crisis because nothing can compare to what these people went through. And the reason that painting is hanging in her foyer, it's the first thing she sees when she walks through her front door. It's to establish gratitude for not having to deal with the same struggles. Everything is all about perspective. And if you're interested in listening to that interview, I'll go ahead and link it in the show notes. She says that painting hanging in her foyer is one of the most valuable things that she owns. And she attributes it to helping keep her grounded. Little did I know I was using an Oprah technique when I was in college. So if comparing yourself to a different situation is what helps you establish gratitude, there's nothing wrong with that. That's my cheat code. When I start feeling a little unhinged, I put on Bruce and I'm quickly brought back to center, because he's the guy who sings about a lot of really sad stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard Sinaloa Cowboys or anything on the Ghost of Tom Joad album, will just really send you into perspective right away. So that's my little cheat. So I've got some other mindfulness techniques. I know a lot of people like to poo-poo positive psychology, but I really do believe that what you put out is what you get back. And so if you're always trying to flip the situation that you come across for the good, or you're trying to think, maybe this is a struggle now, but it will 100% benefit me for the future. Those are stretch marks that are going to help you build resiliency in future encounters with challenges that you have in your life. I'm a huge fan of Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, and I recently finished reading her book, The Vortex. I'm slowly making my way through her entire collection of books. Highly recommend. Put that on your reading list for 2025. She's a big proponent, or Abraham, the voice that she channels, is a proponent of the law of attraction, just making yourself a magnet. So if you're always looking for the good, then the good will always find you. And if you're putting a positive spin on the bad, then your experience is just going to be a lot more smooth than someone who spirals out of control down into the negative. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that because it is very difficult to dig yourself out of a hole when you're already in it. But I have known it to happen. It's happened to a few personal friends of mine, people who were spiraling out of control and somehow heard a voice or were saved. There was an interception by something divine and greater than them. And then they refound purpose and gained traction to get back onto the right path. Here are the things that Abraham Hicks offers. So there are a couple of distinct practices that she puts in her book, and I'm going to break it down for you. This is called the vortexing meditation technique. First, you're going to get comfortable, find a quiet spot where you won't be disturbed, and you're going to sit or lie down. Just get comfortable, whatever works for you. Focus on your breath. Take a few deep breaths to relax your body and your mind. And imagine a bright, warm, and loving energy surrounding you. This is what she calls the vortex. The key to vortexing is to focus on positive emotions, focus on feeling good. Think about things that make you happy or grateful. It could be something as simple as lying in bed and just feeling the crispness of your sheets. Maybe you're someone who just really enjoys crispy, clean sheets, and you're grateful for the fact that you can purchase them. You can sleep in them. You have the ability to clean them. It could be something very, very simple. Don't overthink it. If you're really down in the dumps, or if you really feel like you're losing this, just a lack of hope, you have to start very simple and very basic. Just even giving gratitude for the shoes or the socks on your feet. Even just the ability to see, or you have arms or you have legs. You got to start very simple. Allow the energy as you connect to this good feeling, allow the vortex to surround you and feel good. Imagine that this energy starts to flow through you and it's nourishing you, revitalizing you, repairing you from the inside out. If anything negative comes up or worries, just acknowledge them. Remember, give it a label, recognize the saboteur, and let them go. This is how you flip back into sage mode. Focus on the positive energy of the vortex. Always look for the positive, always reach for the positive. And when you're ready to finish, just take a few more deep breaths and hold on to that feeling just a little while longer and let that carry you through the day. And I'm thinking back to my awakening and this new spiritual path that I find myself on. When it started unfolding, I remember thinking to myself, I am so grateful because I have the tools in my toolbox to overcome pretty much anything. And I feel invincible. It does not mean that I'm never going to have a bad day. It does not mean that I'm never met with challenges that really push me and stretch me. But the ability to recognize that this is life and that you're never really able to see the whole picture. Everything is for my benefit and everything is for my growth. And I think that's something that we need to keep top of mind always as we're going through these challenging times. You never know how it's going to all pan out. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be on top of your mountain of how you define success and you'll be looking back and thinking, thank goodness for those experiences, those challenges, and those hardships because they got me where I am today. If you found this episode useful or think it could benefit someone in your life, feel free to share. And I'm excited to be able to drop a hint at next week's episode. I'll be interviewing a dear friend of mine. We're going to be talking about one of his great passions, and you might be surprised at the information that you learn. Until then, stay curious.